Coming up on the show, high-stakes poker, celebrity players, and a multi-million-dollar bust with Georgia ties. We're going to examine what federal agents uncovered and what it says about the billion-dollar betting boom. Also, a rough patch on I-75 remains a full-blown headache for a third day. We're going to talk to GDOT and find out how long the work zone may last. And from a caffeine-fueled coding to cash-winning creativity, Georgia's next fintech innovators are suiting up for a 48-hour challenge in KSU's latest hackathon. We'll have the very latest on that coming up as well. This is The Take. Let's get it. Hello and welcome. I'm Chesley McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines, and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their takes on today's top stories. We also try to have just a little bit of fun as well. All right, we got some breaking news to get to this morning. We're continuing to follow some breaking news out of Smyrna this morning, where we're learning about a shooting involving a police officer. Now, the details are limited at this time, but we do know that the police department has confirmed that a shooting stemmed from what seems to be a traffic stop, possibly involving a U-Haul truck that has been spotted in the middle of the commotion there. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation is also heading to the scene to investigate. We have a team heading there right now, and we will bring you the very latest as more information continues to come in. All right, we have an 11Alive weather impact alert to pass along to you folks because, not for today, but for the weekend. As we head into the weekend, you're going to notice some changes coming our way. Clouds will start to increase. And then late Sunday, going into Monday, that rain starts to come back to us. Now, we're not talking about thunderstorms or anything severe around the forecast area, but the timing is going to be where cold air moves in. And so you're going to have a cold rain to deal with come Monday morning. And that's when a lot of us getting up to go back to school, back to work. And so that's going to be a big time nuisance for us. So we just want to alert you to let you know a cold rain coming our way as we head into Sunday night, head into Monday. So that's what we'll be looking for, and we'll bring you the very latest on that 11Alive weather impact alert. All right, we're bringing you the latest now on the federal government shutdown. It sits at day 24 now. The Senate failed to advance a GOP backed measure that would pay federal employees, military members, and contractors who have continued to work during the government shutdown. 3 Democrats crossed the aisle to vote for it, including both Georgia Senators Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock. The Senate adjourned yesterday without taking a 13th vote on the House passed bill funding. Barring some unforeseen events, senators won't gavel back in until late Monday afternoon. While Washington remains gridlocked over how to reopen the government, the standoff keeps hitting home here in Georgia. And today, there's growing concern over what would happen with the SNAP benefits and WIC benefits if the shutdown continues to drag into November. The Georgia Budget and Policy Institute is warning that more than 1.4 million in the state, including roughly 640,000 children, could face food insecurity if the benefits were delayed or reduced as early as next weekend. The program, in good times, reduces hunger across Georgia nearly 1/3, helping families stretch their grocery bill during these tough times. But as it stands, the USDA's reserve can only pay about 2/3 of all SNAP benefits for the month of November. All right, with more now is President and CEO of the GBPI, Stacey Fox, joins us now. Welcome back to the show, Stacey.
Thanks for having me back, Chesley.
Absolutely. Your team at the GBPI says SNAP is a critical lifeline for nearly 1.5 million Georgians. What does the lifeline look like for families on the ground, especially heading into the holidays?
Well, we're talking about food on the table for families, and as you mentioned, Chesley, 640,000 children are counting on SNAP to make sure that they're fed and ready to go to school every day, and that families are healthy and that parents are able to take care of their families. This is a real security issue. So ideally, obviously, the shutdown ends, but if not, we call on this administration to release those contingency funds and to find additional programmatic funds like they did for WIC early on in the shutdown to make SNAP whole for the month of November.
Yeah. Your report says that SNAP pumps about $3 billion into Georgia's economy. How could a delay or a reduction ripple through local grocery stores and small businesses?
That's right, Chesley. I mean, about 2,300 grocers rely on SNAP as well. So this isn't just about food on families' tables. This is about local economies. So many of our counties around Georgia rely on SNAP dollars for their economy. So we have to get these dollars into Georgia to take care of not just families, but also our small businesses.
Your report, are you calling for the USDA to use all legal and discretionary tools to keep the benefits flowing? What specific steps would you like to see them take right now?
That's right. So there's a contingency fund set aside to sort of backfill SNAP if something should happen exactly in this situation. As you mentioned, that fund has about $6 billion in it. The monthly cost for SNAP across the country is about $8 billion. So not only does the administration need to release those contingency funds, they need to release some other programmatic dollars to make that $6 billion the $8 billion whole, which we know they can and is legal. And honestly, they are required to release this fund. So this is something that we shouldn't be having to ask to do. They should have done this immediately when the shutdown happened.
Yeah, you hear often about Metro Atlanta being hit hard, but your research points to rural areas of Georgia being hit harder. Why is that?
Well, because we have more families that are relying on SNAP, and because of those small business grocers that you mentioned earlier, they're relying on those SNAP dollars too, much more than we do here in Metro Atlanta.
Does the state of Georgia have any state contingency plans or emergency resources that could be helping to bridge the gap in times like these?
Well, certainly the state could step in if they wanted to. You know, the state has about $9 billion in surplus right now above our own rainy day fund that we could use to help Georgians. But it's unclear if the feds would backfill the state at this point. So not quite sure what the state will do, but the feds are required to step in here. We all should not having to be talking about this or having to even ask for it to happen.
Yeah. You work with families. You've met some of the families maybe struggling during this particular time, parents, seniors, kids. What's your biggest concern if Washington doesn't act soon?
Well, we know in crisis like this that families have to make very hard decisions. So if families are having to make decisions about food or say a medical bill or a prescription to take care of somewhere in their family, this is where the rubber hits the road, right? Where they're making those decisions. So that's what we worry about, is we worry about families having to make decisions that they shouldn't have to make, to prioritize things like food over healthcare or food over childcare, which then means work and income for the families. This is a domino effect that could be devastating for Georgia families.
All right, Stacey Fox, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for your insight this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chesley. Have a good weekend.
All right, take care. You're watching The Take, folks. Don't go anywhere. We got much more for you coming up right after the break. All right, overnight, President Trump stopped all trade negotiations with Canada, all because of a new commercial. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. And good morning to you, Alice. Please break down this ad for us and why it led to the president making this move.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. President Trump cited an ad from the government of Ontario that features former President Reagan saying that high tariffs are basically bad news. He says that they lead to retaliation and fierce trade wars, and then said, quote, "Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs." And President Trump pointed to a statement from the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute accusing Ontario of using selective audio and video that misrepresents what is a very famous 1987 address that President Reagan gave. And that same foundation says that Ontario did not ask for permission to use and to edit the remarks. They are edited in the video. Some pieces, taken out, shortened. And the foundation also says it's now reviewing legal options. President Trump is accusing Ontario of interfering with a looming Supreme Court case on the legality of his tariffs that he called very important to national security and the economy. So basically, the president is saying that this was overstepping, that it was inappropriate to use the former President Reagan's words in these ways, and that they are doing it to try to interfere with this important legal case here in this country. What we've heard from the head of government in Ontario is that he said they're going to use every every tool possible to try to push back against the tariffs, the U.S. tariffs on Canada that, of course, have caused so much consternation and tension between these two longtime allies.
Got it. All right, let's shift to the Homeland Security front. The president saying his programs to make America safe are working. That includes striking boats his administrator says are carrying drugs.
Yeah, and this one is getting a lot of growing legal questioning around it. The Trump administration has had at least 9 strikes against alleged drug trafficking boats in the Caribbean Sea nearby the coast of Venezuela, and now new along the eastern Pacific Ocean as well. And President Trump said yesterday, quote, "The cartels are waging war on America, and just as I promised in the campaign, we're waging war on them." And the president is now suggesting that operations may move on land. He did not say where, but he has been criticizing Venezuela, Colombia, and Mexico. And he said that his administration will inform Congress about targeting drug runners on land, but he stopped short of promising to seek authorization for military force. Democrats in Congress calling for hearings on the strikes that have killed at least 37 people. The administration has not presented evidence there were drugs in all of the boats, though the president maintains the strikes are legal and necessary to keep drugs out of this country.
All right, finally, we're hearing that the president is backing off plans to send the National Guard troops into San Francisco. What's behind this move?
Yeah, he said that he had spoken to the mayor and also heard backlash from the tech community in San Francisco. He cited some friends of his, including the CEO of NVIDIA, CEO of Salesforce, who had specifically come to him and urged him not to deploy National Guard troops to San Francisco. And that seems to have worked. He went on to say that the people of San Francisco have come together on fighting crime, especially, he said, since we started taking charge of that, quote, very nasty subject. So I think that points to the conversation that he had with the mayor that perhaps gave him some solace in feeling like they were taking some steps. But then very clearly, input from the tech community had a lot to do with this decision. It doesn't mean, though, that he's done. He said he's going to focus instead on other cities like Chicago.
All right. Alice Barr, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate your insight. Have a great weekend.
You too.
All right. When we return, we're going to talk more about this illegal gambling sting that involves some members of the NBA. Don't go anywhere. We're back right after this. All right, federal agents say what started out as high-stakes poker games and insider bets, sports bets, turned into one of the largest illegal gambling rings in the country and has ties stretching right here into Georgia. Yesterday, the FBI revealed that more than 30 individuals were arrested across 11 states in a sweeping crackdown on illegal gambling involving both sports betting and rigged poker games. Among those arrested, Portland Trailblazer head coach Chauncey Billups and Miami Heat guard Terry Rozier. And we learned that 3 men arrested right here in Georgia are part of the scheme. 52-year-old Tony Godson of Forsyth, also known as Black Tony, and 43-year-old Johnny Mozilla from Gray, known as John South. A third man, 40-year-old Kenny Hahn from Queens, New York, but was arrested right here in Georgia. The FBI director says that the gambling ring even stretches into the heart of some of America's top mafia families.
Not only did we crack into the fraud that these perpetrators committed on the grand stage of the NBA, but we also entered and executed a system of justice against La Cosa Nostra to include the Bonanno, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese crime families.
Wow. All right, time to dig deeper into this case with Emory Professor of Marketing, Michael Lewis. Welcome back to the show.
Good morning.
All right. Well, here's where we start. We start with, you got rigged poker games, you got hidden cameras, we got links to organized crime. What stands out to you about this organized, high-tech driven alleged gambling operation?
2 things pop into my head. First, this sounds like a movie script. I mean, this is an amazing situation that's going to captivate all of America. The second thing is the inevitability of all this. You know, as gambling moved online, as we got into all these prop bets, it was almost inevitable that this was going to start to happen.
You see leagues like the NBA today heavily pushing betting, right, at least. How damaging are these headlines to the league and their betting partnerships?
It's an interesting question because I honestly say I don't know. On some level, it's such a fascinating story. It adds almost to the color of sports, right? It seems like a plot out of a movie like Cena. And so it kind of builds into the fabric of the allure of all this. But on the other level, and I think this is the real danger, it's more like a crack. Like, is this stuff legitimate? Is this stuff trustworthy?
Yeah.
Because if it's not trustworthy, then it all falls apart potentially.
So does it have some kind of effect on young people today, especially younger fans that are watching this all unfold?
I think that's a great point because I think gambling has moved downward in age over time because so much of the activity happens online. That a young sports fan is going to be exposed to, shows on Fox or ESPN that are actually talking about the right bet side to take on one of these prop bets. And so they might be the generation that's most influenced by this stuff. That for them, gambling and sports really go hand in hand.
Does a case like this or a situation like this cause leagues to begin to back down now from the normalizing sports betting, you think?
The leagues have all been pursuing it because getting fans to gamble is a way of getting them more to interact. And so it's in some ways it's the best positive for them in terms of really juicing up and growing the fan base. But across all of it, not just the professional leagues, but at the college level as well, there's an enormous danger. And I don't think anyone really has a great sense of how to put guardrails in place to prevent this stuff because it's just so widespread. There's so many bets that can be made.
You mentioned college. Might a case like this influence the future marketing rules or athletic endorsement guidelines around betting?
It's got to be part of the equation, right? When you have, especially when we get a college basketball season, and you've got so many games going on and so many betting lines, schools all over the place, there's so much potential for these type of bets to take place with the Rozier case of taking himself out of the game. It's a very easy bet to manipulate. And so it's, there's got to be guidelines to basically prohibit it. The enforceability, though, is really difficult.
So you got a league, right? A league, maybe endorsing betting. Can a team like the Hawks decide, hey, we don't want to be a part of it, or because they're a part of the league, they have to be involved?
Well, I mean, you've got the major players for the DraftKings, the Prize Picks, and so the leagues are attracted to betting because betting is something that hardcore sports fans really want to do. So it's part of letting them be a part of the game. But I don't think there's a means for the teams to really opt out at this point. I mean, if I'm running the Hawks, I don't want my players to touch this. I have clauses in the contract that say you will not be part of anything related with gambling, sort of almost like a morality clause. But in terms of enforceability, I don't know how you get that.
Gotcha. All right, Michael Lewis, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks so much for your insight this morning.
Thank you.
All right. Folks, when we return, we're going to check in with GDOT. We had some problems on the roads with road collapsing. We're going to get a check on that when we return. Don't you go anywhere. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. Right now, you're looking at traffic on I-75 near Morrow. You see it's very slow going as we're heading into the weekend. This as the effects of early incident that happened on Wednesday morning, a discovery of damage to a bridge overpass just north of Mount Zion Boulevard there. Back with us this morning is friend of the show, GDOT spokeswoman, Natalie Dale. Good to see you.
Good morning, Chesley. It's so good to see you.
All right, so give us an update on this damage here and how long you think it will take to fix it all up.
Well, that is something we are currently working through. This came into our team early Wednesday morning as what is, in essence, a large pothole on a bridge. Now, the difference between a pothole on the road is when you get to the bottom of a large pothole, you reach the ground. Now, if you get to bottom of a large pothole in a bridge, you reach the bottom of the bridge. And so it's different with what you're dealing with. And so we did some temporary fixes to really get us to the weekend. And now we're going to have extensive lane closures throughout the weekend, possibly longer, to get more extensive repairs done on this bridge.
Talk to us about, if you can, the logistics that GDOT crews have to put into motion when emergencies like this pop up.
Well, there are a lot of people on these calls, certainly, especially in these early morning hours, whether the call comes in from our hero units who notice something on the road, local law enforcement, our maintenance crews, our bridge teams are all dispatched to a site, oftentimes in the middle of the night, to begin important inspections, to look at what the issue is, to bring materials to the site, to quickly organize what a temporary repair could be to get the lane back open. And then we coordinate, in this case, an emergency contract with our contractors to see how quickly they can get out there and make a longer term fix as we see what the issues are.
Yeah, you know, it's been a big week for you guys. It's National Teen Driver Safety Week. And from your perspective, what are the biggest risks facing young drivers on Georgia's roads today?
I think inexperience is, of course, one of the big things that we see with teen drivers. I mean, do you remember when you got your license? I do. There is this sense of freedom and excitement, but you're a little nervous. But you, as a teenager, sometimes don't realize your limitations. And so things like extra speed, things like distracted driving, passengers in the back seat, these can all very quickly become very dangerous situations for young, inexperienced drivers. So we work at an early age with our Keep Georgia Safe program to get in the classroom, to talk to kids earlier than their teen years about what it takes to be a good driver, what it takes to be a good passenger in that car. And of course, as parents, we are the number one place that they are learning from. So we need to take a lot of responsibility with our actions and what they're watching on setting good examples for teen drivers.
Yeah. What's the one thing parents can do today that could make the difference for their teens being safe behind the wheel?
I think you have to have that conversation about the importance of safety and not distraction. First thing you need to do when you get in the car is put your seatbelt on. We are still seeing almost half of our fatalities in Georgia can be directly related to not using a seatbelt. That's crazy. I mean, I think we're the generation where the first thing we did when we got in the car was put our seatbelts on.
That's right.
And cars are becoming smarter about letting us know these things. But be the example. Have them put their seatbelts on, but let them understand primarily that text, that social media post doesn't need to cost you your life. And we still see dangerous things on our roadway from distracted driving, even though it's illegal. Teens, we can change this tide. We can sort of turn the tide by getting teens who are getting in the driver's seat now to make better decisions than we as older drivers are making.
Always great insight from you, Ms. Natalie Dale. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Have a great weekend.
All right, do the same. All right, folks, don't go anywhere. When we come back, we have a preview of the Georgia vote. Zach Merchant, he's sitting right next to me. Hey, man. Hey. We'll be back right after this. All right, welcome back to the show. Yep, on Tuesday, the state's Public Service Commission met to review a request from Georgia Power over building new generation resources. Among those who spoke to the members against it was Patty Duran, a former Democratic candidate for the PSC and previous guest here on The Take. Surveillance video is alleged that eventually shows Duran during a break in the meeting, picking up a booklet labeled Georgia Power Trade Secrets, eventually putting it into her purse and leaving the room. Now, Duran was arrested by Capitol Police. She was charged with a felony theft and trade secrets, a crime that in Georgia carries a penalty of 1 to 5 years in prison and a fine of up to $50,000. Last check, she remains in a Fulton County jail with no bail set. The arrest highlights just how charged Georgians' emergency debate has become, and comes as voters prepare to decide two PSC seats in November. All right, let's look at how this incident might grow as far as security goes. I got Zach Merchant here with me. We're going to talk about this a little bit. He's the co-host of the Georgia Vote. Talk to us about this a little bit. We talk about this PSC vote and how it's getting cranked up this year.
Yeah, the PSC race is in some years something of a little bit of a sleepy kind of issue on the ballot. Not that it's not important, and not that it does not occasionally stir up controversy. We saw this situation, these allegations against Ms. Duran there. But the Public Service Commission has a bunch of jobs, chief among them, they're in charge of setting power rates here in Georgia. So you pay an electric bill to Georgia Power, they play a role in what those rates are being set at. This year, this election has become a real focal point. There are two incumbent Republicans up for re-election. That's Tim Echols and Fitz Johnson. They face two Democratic challengers, Peter Hubbard and Alicia Johnson. And in part because of the way the calendar has stacked up this year, it's in many ways the most prominent statewide race on the ballot. So if you're a Democratic operative or a Republican operative, this is the place where you're putting a lot of your attention. And so that's why people are talking about a PSC race who otherwise probably wouldn't even be necessarily thinking about it right now.
Absolutely right. I wouldn't have been thinking about that. And then you hear about these charges, you go, hey, wait, okay, whoa. Now, how does that work? And so you put some clarity on that.
And to be clear, too, you know, the situation with these criminal allegations, that's unrelated to the race itself here. You know, Ms. Duran, she's not a candidate on the ballot here. That was something that allegedly took place at a recent meeting. But if you're a Democrat or a Republican who's involved in professional politics, you know, you going into 2026, because that's the big year coming up, you want to have something where you can say, hey, my side did well. And so if you're a Democrat, you're trying to flip the script and flip one of these seats. If you're a Republican, you're trying to push that message, win the races, and say, hey, look, we're still strong going into 26. That's why there's a lot of attention from both sides here.
Gotcha. All right, so the government shutdown still going on, right? Where do both parties sit now?
Still stuck. I mean, you know, you kind of run out of ways to describe it at some point. We're well into our third week at this point, and the rumblings coming out of Washington, at least right now, and we've got to put this big asterisk because things can always change quickly when lawmakers want things to change quickly. Right now, the rumblings are that this could continue to last for some time, and it's still stuck over this original issue, the issue of health care and health care subsidies. Democrats, the majority position of their party still is that any new government funding bill that would reopen the government, they say it's got to include an extension of Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare, subsidies, because they're set right now to expire at the end of the year. And Democrats say a lot of people's health care premiums could go way up if those subsidies aren't extended. Republicans, very different perspective still, they say you got to reopen the government first. There's a Republican-backed stopgap bill available. It's ready. It's being voted upon again and again and again in the Senate that would reopen the government. Short term, a couple of weeks now, and that window is shrinking. But they say you got to reopen first, then we'll have this conversation about health care. It's still stuck, Chesley.
Wow, we got about 30 seconds left. Anything you want to hit big that we need to know about?
I think the one thing we should keep in mind is as we continue to talk about this shutdown conversation, in the last 20 seconds we have here, you can see it as Democrats versus Republicans, but there are some outliers. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's in the House, a stalwart conservative firebrand from Georgia in many ways, she recently has come out and become increasingly critical of House leadership, Republican leadership, saying, hey, we're not in session right now, and she is criticizing Speaker Mike Johnson, saying, bring us back in session. Let us get to work.
All right. Zach, really appreciate it, man.
Thanks, Chesley.
All right. You can watch the Georgia Vote with Zach Merchant and Faith Jesse Sunday mornings right here at 11 o'clock on 11Alive Plus. All right. Atlanta is about to become the center of the world's nonprofit as hundreds of leaders and advocates and change makers gather to help shape the future of philanthropy. Joining us now to talk more about this summit, the independent sector, is President and CEO Akilah Watkins. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right. For those unfamiliar with what makes the Independent Sector Summit such a unique gathering in the nonprofit space, talk to us about it.
Absolutely. This is one of the largest summits in the country that is focused totally on the nonprofit sector. And it's really important for the state of Georgia because there are 300,000 nonprofits in the state. And so this is one of the largest gathering to show off the incredible work that happens in the city of Atlanta and largely in the state of Georgia.
When you look around at the people that are attending, what inspires you the most?
Yeah, so what inspires me the most is the sense of deep volunteerism and caring that so many nonprofit volunteers and employees hold. Right? So what we have in the state of Georgia alone, we have millions of volunteers. We have 2.2 million volunteers in the state of Georgia alone that contribute to $5.2 billion to the state economy.
You know, this is happening as the federal government shutdown is taking place. How has that impacted the charitable sector?
Absolutely. The charitable sector is one of the places that the American economy, that the American population comes to for help. When you think about where they go to for food, shelter, or to pay their high utility bills. And so for the nonprofit sector, there's a lot of struggling happening right now because the sector, with the loss of a lot of federal funding, is also a place where a lot of Georgians come to for help.
Yeah.
And so with less resources and more need, the nonprofit sector is extremely struggling. And we hear that every single day from the more than 300,000 nonprofit employees that work in the state of Georgia alone.
You're based in D.C., but the summit is here. What made you choose Atlanta to serve as host for this important summit?
We wanted to come to the state of Georgia because, first of all, it's an alive and wonderful and vibrant city. Second, the state of Georgia and the city of Atlanta, more specifically, has over 300,000 nonprofit employees, and that's 7% of the state's workforce. So we wanted to go to a place that had a huge population of nonprofit employees. And then the third thing is that the city of Atlanta has incredible nonprofits doing work from protecting childcare to making sure that Georgians are safe and healthy. 60% of the state's nonprofits are focused just on healthcare. Okay. And we all know, and we heard from your earlier segment, how important healthcare is here in the state of Georgia for the millions of Georgians. So we wanted to come here to highlight the great work that's happening and to also be able to showcase the important work of the nonprofit sector that's happening both at the state level and nationally.
All right, Dr. Akilah Watkins, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We'll be back right after this. Let's get back to that breaking news we shared with you off the top of the show. We are learning more about the shooting involving a police officer in Smyrna. We do know that the police department has confirmed that the shooting stemmed from a traffic stop. Let's head out to Ariana Manise with a quick update on what's taking place.
Yeah, Chesa, we just got that information from Smyrna Police. We are here on the scene on McLinden Avenue and Concord Road here in Smyrna. And as you mentioned, we just confirmed that this was an officer-involved shooting that started with a traffic stop. Right now, the GBI is here on the scene leading this investigation, and police tell us that this all started around 6 a.m. Officers stopped a stolen vehicle at this intersection. The only vehicle that is not a police vehicle is that U-Haul right there. I do want to point that out. And they're saying that the officer did fire his weapon. We're still working to confirm more details surrounding this investigation, like what led up to the shooting, why the police officer stopped that person. Right now, the GBI, once again, they are here on the scene, as well as Smyrna Police. They're here on the scene. We're going to continue to follow this and try to get more updates and bring that to you live at 11Alive News at midday. Sending it back to you, Chesley.
All right. Thanks a lot, Ariana. Really appreciate that insight. All right. Americans frustrated by high home borrowing rates may have gotten some welcome news. CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Good morning, Maribel.
Good morning, Chesley.
Looks like our wallets may have finally got a sigh of relief.
A little bit, Chesley. So Freddie Mac says mortgage rates are at their lowest level of the year. The average 30-year fixed rate is now around 6.19%. It's down from 6.27% last week. And just in, beginning January 2026, benefits from Social Security will increase by 2.8%. That cost of living adjustment is tied to the Consumer Price Index, which also just came out. It rose 0.3% in September, putting the annual rate at 3%. Core inflation, which leaves out food and energy, stayed steady at 3.1%. So the Fed meets next week to talk about what that all means for interest rates. You know, Chesley, listen, a few years ago when mortgage rates hit like 8%, a $400,000 home with 20% down meant a $2,350 monthly payment. Today's rate, 6%, same loan, Chesley, it drops to $1,920. So that's a savings of roughly $430 a month just by refinancing. You just got to check with a professional that the math is mathing.
Yeah, that's significant right there. All right. Work is underway for the President Trump's new ballroom at the White House, and now we're seeing some folks are kicking in to help subsidize it, if you will. We got some ties in Georgia, right?
Yes, you do. So the White House released a list of corporate and individual donors for President Trump's new ballroom. It includes several big tech companies like Coinbase, T-Mobile, Hard Rock International, and Union Pacific Railroad. There are a number of donors with ties to Georgia. Comcast, Lockheed Martin, Caterpillar up there. Trump says the ballroom will cost around $300 million, up from a previous estimate of $200 million. The East Wing was demolished this week to make room for the 90,000 square foot structure. The project drawing some criticism after earlier assurances it wouldn't affect the existing White House. Chesley.
Yeah, just like he's taking the history away. I heard a lot of people talking about that. All right, we got falling sales leading to massive job dumps over at Target.
Target is cutting 1,800 corporate jobs in an effort to rebound after 4 years of declining sales. It's the first major round of layoffs for the company in a decade. The eliminated roles are a combination of about 1,000 employees and 800 positions that won't be filled. Affected employees will be notified Tuesday. Target has been struggling with declining store traffic and inventory troubles in recent years. Shares have fallen by 65% since their all-time high in late 2021. Now, that's a wrap of the consumer headlines. I'm going to wish you a great weekend, Chesley, but I know what you'll be doing Sunday after church.
What's that?
1 p.m. Eagles versus the Giants. I have no favorites, but I know you'll be repping the Birds.
I'm repping them right now. Right now, flying high. Thanks a lot, Maribel. Really appreciate it.
You got it.
Weekend. All right. Well, it's the only event where hacking into computers may be a good thing. Details on KSU's Hackathon when we return. Welcome back to the show. Think you've got the next big idea in financial technology? Well, students from across Georgia are heading to Kennesaw State University this weekend for a 2-day hackathon. That's all about innovation, teamwork, and turning bold ideas into real-world solutions. Joining us now is Dr. Iman Zafar, Interim Department Chair of Information Systems and Security at Kennesaw State University, to explain to us how this event is shaping the future of fintech talent right here in Georgia. All right, for the viewers who hear Fintech Hackathon and picture students just coding all night long, what's really going on at this event? Talk to us, Doc.
Thank you so much. No, actually, this is a good point, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the goal is for our teams to act like fintech consultants. They find problems in financial services, design innovative solutions, and then pitch them to a panel of industry judges. So it's a lot more than the traditional let's code behind a computer screen all night long. And our challenges are pretty diverse. We've got areas like payment security, expanding financial access, simplifying compliance processes, cross-border payments. So there's a lot that's there that we can focus on when it comes to this hackathon over the next couple of days.
Yeah, you've called this hackathon a launch pad for next-gen fintech leaders. What kind of real-world challenges will these students be actually solving?
Well, that's the point, right? So we have different types of pain points that actually exist in this particular space as well. So for example, when you look at what fintech in general is, most folks are aware that they can use the phone to make a payment, but can we make that process even faster, even more simpler? And so what is that next level going to look like? Maybe the future does not have us using our chip cards. Maybe the future is in the services side of things. So the great thing about a space like this is we don't know what the future looks like 5 years from now, 10 years from now. So we're just ideating new concepts, innovation, entrepreneurship.
Yeah. How do students usually react once you throw them into a high-pressure creative environment like the one you're describing to us?
I think one of the big things about students is that they do rise to the challenge. I think sometimes we disregard just how innovative they can be, because it's really this crowd, your 18 to 25-year-olds, that are the future when it comes to, being future users of this technology as well. So they just have a totally different viewpoint of what even payments are. This is a generation that hasn't seen a flip phone. Some of them are younger than the oldest iPhone as well.
Wow. So
how they think and how they just operate is so different. But what's really great is what the experience is for them. For them, this is the generation that came through the COVID times. And for them to now be on campus working together in teams, I think the learning is just happening in a very different way. And maybe that's what our future of academia looks like.
Yeah, I got you. Do they come in with their own ideas, or does the best ideas come from just off the top of the head?
Well, we do have a structure to it because this is a competitive process as well. We have a series of problem statements that is provided to them. it gives them a little bit of structure, something to focus on. But the how they go about finding the solution, that's all them.
I understand there's a $9,000 cash prize on the line, but is this worth more than that, really?
It is. I think it's the experience. And of course, you never know that the next big thing may come out of this hackathon as well.
Yeah. When you say the next great thing, what's one of the wildest, most creative pitches you've gotten from the KSU Hackathon?
Well, we just had a competition where this is not our first go with the hackathon, but we had a student who came out with this really interesting idea of a sports betting app. And he's in the process of currently getting that funded.
Wow.
So that, again, was something which we never really thought about when we were designing the program. But like I said, these students, they think very differently. They're very innovative.
I got about a minute left. If you were a student on a team, what kind of fintech idea would you try to build up?
Wow. I mean, we need more than a minute for that. But honestly, I think a lot of fintech comes down to making folks aware of the various scams that actually exist as well. So around about tax season, there's always going to be some sort of a cybersecurity challenge. So anything that we can create that actually makes the life of everyone who uses financial services safer, I think would be a great thing. And just as a service for society.
Gotcha. Dr. Zafar, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for your time.
All right, have fun at the hackathon. All right, folks, when we come back, another look at your forecast, plus my final take when we return. We're back right after this. We just want to recap for you that breaking news that we shared with you at the top of the show. We're continuing to follow some breaking news out of Smyrna this morning, where we're learning about a shooting involving a police officer. This was at the intersection of Concord Road and McClendon Avenue. It happened around 6 o'clock this morning. Smyrna police is telling us that this was involving a stolen vehicle that led to a traffic stop. We're told that the driver involved in the situation has died. The GBI is conducting an investigation. We have our Ariana Maniz on the scene, gathering information as we speak, and we'll have much more for you coming up on our midday show. You want to stay tuned for that. All right, let's take a look at our 7-day outlook, and it does have an 11Alive weather impact alert on it. You see it about 4 days out. Yeah, Monday. What you notice is that the temperatures will be dropping. So we go from 74 degrees for a high temperature today with full sunshine down to about 59 degrees by Monday with a 60% chance for rain. Now, we're not talking about severe weather at all, but we are talking about a nuisance, right? When you have the rain coupled with the colder temperatures, that can be a mess, especially for a Monday morning going back to work and back to school. So we want to alert you folks, let you know what's coming your way so you can prepare your mind for it after a weekend where we'll have a little bit of rain coming in late on Sunday going into Monday. We'll hold on to a very slight chance for Tuesday and Wednesday, but look at those temperatures staying below the average. We're talking about 60s, low 60s, or at least around 60 by Tuesday and Wednesday. By Thursday, we'll get the sunshine breaking back out. 61 degrees will be our high temperature. All right, now for my final take. The term exact change is going away following the halt of production on the U.S. penny. The Treasury Department officially marked the beginning of the end for making the copper coin this past May. President Trump told the department in February to stop making that coin. Each penny cost about 3 cents to produce. The U.S. Mint reportedly made its last pennies in August, and already retailers like supermarkets and some retail shops are already seeing penny shortages like Home Depot and Kroger, making it difficult to give back exact change transactions, right? Retailers reporting this shortage because they now have to round up to the nickel, all right, which gives to give change back, which means they're losing money. So, as Ben Franklin said a long time ago, a penny saved is a penny earned. Start keeping your pennies, folks. I know you got those penny banks at home, you know, and if you ever find yourself running out of a penny, all you have to do is go to your local fountain. I'm sure there's pennies all in the bottom of there, but maybe don't do it in the daytime where you get caught trying to get them out there. All right, folks, have a great weekend. Make sure you try to encourage somebody today.